point of that is that it's not all debt is bad. And credit cards are dangerous if you're careless with them. But it's important to understand them. So now this last video I'm going to show you is also another Dave Ramsey clip. And listen carefully to this TikTok girl that they're going to rip on. So let me get the sound here.
All of them on the wall in my house.
Oh boy.
Clocks.
Okay, this is going to take a while, guys. Buckle in. So TikTok is a social media platform.
I know what it is.
It's blown up in popularity among the youth and now among the olds. Yes, that's what they call them.
They call them the olds.
The olds, yes.
You mean your audience?
I'm learning from Gen Z. I'm learning. And so here's the deal.
This radio show is mostly geared towards the olds.
If you know about TikTok, you know, oh, isn't that just like weird dance challenges? It has become so much more. And so there's a lot of personal finance TikTokers out there creating content to help the people.
Yeah, I've seen some of the personal physical fitness and mental health advice that
that's what shows up on your feed.
Some of the TikTokers are bestowing upon us all.
Yeah. And it's a lot of 17-year-olds with opinions about how you should handle your money.
I watch a couple of TED Talks and I know everything.
You're a genius.
I'm a genius.
So I stumble upon videos.
What I love about that is what are their qualifications to be giving financial advice?
Okay, well, you know who this man is, George Camel, right?
Yeah, Skippy.
Do you know who the other guy is?
Yeah, John Deloney.
Yeah, do you know what he does?
He has a PhD in education, counseling, and higher education.
Right.
From Texas Tech.
So mental health is basically his thing.
Well, he doesn't really have a mental health degree either, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But his jam is mental health, not necessarily personal finance.
Right.
I mean, he's received his training from Ramsey Solutions and obviously knows the Ramsey methodology to be able to answer questions of that sort. But the fact remains that finance isn't his thing at all.
No, I know. And I watched him on the documentary they did, the Borrowed Future one. And I uploaded the video on that. You should check that out too. But he's on that, and he's basically, I'm like telling kids that you don't really need to go to school, or we really need to rethink it, and so maybe college isn't for everybody. That's what that whole thing is about. And I'm like, well, it's really ironic that you're doing that, John, when you have every time you show up on the screen, it says PhD beneath your name. You're really getting every fucking mileage you can out of that. But no. College is too expensive for other people to go. They're all freaking hypocrites, dude. I can't. Anyway, watch
all the
this.
time that just caused me to be very angry very instantly because it's just a cesspool of terrible financial advice.
Oh, and George Camel Skippy, right? I can't find anything on his educational background or his financial background. So I don't know if he has any training at all, other than he's just.
You might not. You just couldn't find anything.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything. He doesn't even have it on his own page. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page about him. He doesn't talk about his experience. He's just been with Dave since 2010 or 11 or 12, something like that. And he's just been a Dave sycophant, and that's kind of all I know about him.
That is just helping Gen Z go into debt faster, because that's how to set up the youth of America for their adult life.
Thanks, TikTok.
And so as I come across them, I thought, why don't we play one on the show for all of America to hear?
Good.
Let me set this up. This is a girl who's playing two characters, same person, two characters. It's going back and forth, and she's the mom and she's the daughter.
But talking to herself in a very clever way.
Yes.
I love clever.
And the mom is anti.
See, he's got to set this up, Lacey, because most of their audience is calling their grandkids right now, going, "What's TikTok?"
Credit card, and the daughter is explaining to mom why she's a genius and you should have a credit card. So let's play the clip and let's see your reaction.
I'm ready for my first credit card. Absolutely not. Credit cards are evil, honey. No, they're not. Do you even know how they work? Yeah, it's literally a card with money on it. The money belongs to a bank, and every time I use the card to buy something, I'm borrowing their money to pay for it. See? You're using their money. This is going to get you into a lot of debt. No. It can get me into debt if I use it irresponsibly, but I won't let that happen. How are you going to manage that? When the bill comes each month, I have the option to pay the minimum amount or the entire amount that I borrowed. If I pay the full amount every month, then I'll never owe any interest or get into debt. And what if you forget to pay? I won't spend more money than I have, and I'll turn on auto pay, so it will automatically pay off the entire balance every month. Fine, but why not just use your debit card if you have the money anyways? They reward you with things like cash back or free travel, plus it builds your credit score. Okay, looks like you know your stuff. How did you learn all this? Addison taught me. She teaches all the money hacks. That's why I followed
I
her.
literally want to set my own hair on fire. John,
Okay, so they're gonna get all pissed off about this.
Okay, so I gotta tell you, I don't love all of the things that the TikTok girl had to say, but I'm gonna say, from my perspective, she's not wrong.
She's right about everything, and in fact, if you go
She
to
is right.
if you go to the what is it, the Finance Protection Bureau, she basically just read their description of how to avoid credit debt.
And she's totally right.
She did it in the same order too.
On all of that, actually, I liked it. The only thing I really didn't particularly like that she had to say, and it's true, and I'll even call myself out that I utilize this, but I don't love that she did the whole, plus you get free travel and you get cash back, because that feels a little like a gateway drug. I'm not going to lie, I get a ridiculous number of airline points. I travel to see family across the country a lot, and I like having kind of a lot of them there in case I need to knock down a price or whatever. But I don't love using that to like sell other people and using credit cards, because sometimes that's how some of the younger people get sort of drawn in and get themselves into a pickle. So I just don't love necessarily advertising that part. But I have to say, I don't disagree with her on her points. They're pretty spot on as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and everything, and she's at least explaining it. They're not going to explain it. They're going to just bitch and moan and pull out whatever. I will say this. So when you talk about in college, if you're teaching personal finance to like a college course, right? And you get to credit, they always tell you to stress this, and this is pretty universal in finance, in higher ed and finance. There's two types of credit card users: people who use it for the credit and people who use it for the benefits, right? And the benefits are things like cash back, convenience, airline miles, stuff like that. What she's talking about is using it for the benefits, not for the credit, right? So the whole catch to that is, and she says it a couple times, and it is the most important part, is if you pay the card off every month, right, they don't ever charge you interest as long as you pay it off on time. There's no interest. You pay the fee on the card, but they don't pay interest.
So I have to tell you, that is literally what I do as well. So that's why I agree that she's totally right about it. I have one primary card I use, and it's an airline I utilize quite a bit for going to visit family, etc. And I hooked up a whole bunch of monthly bills to it, ones that don't charge you extra for being hooked up to a credit card.
Right.
So I can rack up the miles.
And then you just pay off the card.
And then I pay off the card every month. Therefore, I do have the annual fee, but I don't ever pay any interest, and so that's 100% accurate. And so I do like to tell people about that strategy, but I'm always a little hesitant, like in a video like that can get so much traction. Good for her, because she's extremely good.
She got over she got over 1 million views, and at least she's getting the information from the Credit Financial Protection Bureau. Basically, she's distributing it. So I give her freaking mad kudos for that.
I give her mad kudos for that too. I'm always just hesitant, on the benefits thing, and kind of want to be super clear and cautious about that, just because I've known people to
overspend.
To me, this is only a good strategy for people who are extremely diligent and extremely mindful about making sure they pay off those balances. Otherwise, that runs away and snowballs on you very quickly. And she said that very clearly.
Several times,
I just happen to know a lot of people that
but this
don't
is
do that.
And they're going to make that same argument, right? And the thing about it is part of this is, and this has just been my experience when people come to me and they have a lot of credit debt, once you explain it to them, it's not so daunting and you don't see a lot of problems. If you just tell them credit cards are evil, then it's a lot more defeatist than just to say, well, look, this is actually how it works. If you pay it off every month, da 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 da. And I'll show you guys this real quick in a second. But my advice is, if you're somebody who's got a problem or you're going to spend too much on credit, and this is just generally my advice, is if you get a credit card, get it for a small amount that you're going to use. The problem is people let the credit card company talk them into, oh, get it for $25,000 limit. It's like, no, get it for $1,000 limit, right? If you
See how you do.
well, and even then, it's like once you get those higher limits, it dings your credit score because you can go into that much debt that quickly, right? So if you want to buy a house or something, it's actually going to be a higher interest rate because you have so much credit available to you. You're dangerous. Right? So you generally don't want to have a huge limit on a credit card. You want to keep it pretty small, and that'll keep you from getting out of trouble. So and it'll help you build your credit. So to have $1,000 credit card, even if you can't pay it 1 month or something, you can pay off $1,000 pretty quick. Once you start paying to like 10 or 15, now you're in deep shit. Plus, I want to show you this because this is really important. So
They can still tempt you though. They can put those boxes up there, kind of
Right.
fill them out, like, hey, we're going to offer you an increase of blah blah blah. You're approved now.
Yeah.
You know.
So I got this. This is from the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, and these are things that are required now on your credit card statement that has to be made available to you. Okay. And the thing to understand about it is, so we'll look box number 1. This person has a previous balance of $535. Can we see that well enough, or should I zoom in?
Zoom in a little bit.
That's better. So they have a previous balance. Well, that means that they didn't pay off that last month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they made a payment of $450. They got other credits. They made these purchases. Balance transfers, cash advances. Kids do not take cash advances on your credit card because they will.
Yeah, they're terrible.
They
They'll
will.
start racking up interest the second you take that money
Yeah.
out.
And
And
it's
you paying off that balance doesn't make you avoid the interest.
no, and the cash advances are always at a much higher interest rate than your purchases. So never take cash out of those cards because it'll start racking up right away.
Yeah, there's not any way of getting around the interest there. So they sell you on the idea that you won't pay that $3 ATM fee, but what happens is from day number 1, you start racking up interest. So it's not worth it.
Yeah. So as you see, these are the fees and the interest. So there was interest charged of $10 on that previous $535, but they can't charge interest yet on this $529.57 that person just added if they pay it off in full. But the full amount now is $1,784, right? And they're getting interest on their cash advance. So we can go over here to number 2, where it's the new balance. Minimum payment is $53, and this is the date. So that's when the payment's due. Number 3 and number 4 are important. You should pay attention to these. Number 3, late payment warning has to be on these, right? Because a lot of people sign up for them and don't understand it. If you do not receive your minimum payment by the date listed above, you may have to pay a $35 fee, and your annual percentage rate, APR, may increase up to the penalty APR of 29%, 28.99%. So if you're not paying your bill on time, they can jack up the interest, right? So it's important for everybody to be aware of that. Number 4 is also important. This is the best part for you to pay attention to, boys and girls, because the minimum payment warning. They used to not do this. So back in the day, right, like in the 80s when everybody was getting credit cards, right, and they'd start...
For us, when we first started college and got our very first starter credit cards, we didn't get this info.
No. And you get the card and you're just making the minimum payment. You don't think about it, right? And what they don't tell you is the reason the minimum payment is so low is because they want the card to keep racking up interest. So all you're ever doing is paying interest, and you're never paying down the loan, really. So they had to change all that, and you have to be warned about that now. And the important thing is they have to do this. So they have to give you a side-by-side comparison, right? If you make no additional charges, right? So no more charges, and you only pay the minimum payment of $53, it would take you 10 years to pay it off at $53 a month, and you'll pay an interest, or you'll pay total $32.84. So you'd have paid almost $1,500 in interest.
That is almost double.
Yep. Now, if you pay an extra $9 a month, $62, you'd pay it off in 3 years, and you only would have paid an extra, whatever, $400 here, $450. So you'd have saved over $1,000, and they have to show you that on your statement. Now, ideally, what you're not doing is leaving a balance and making the minimum payment. You're paying off the full amount at the end of the month. Because if you do that, like the TikTok girl said, they can't charge you interest. We can skim through these, but these are important. If you have a penalty, a trigger penalty, because you didn't pay on time, or you left a balance for too long, they can jack it up. So you got to know what that is. Because I think right now, I don't think it says the rate it is now. Oh, yeah, it does. Right now, the rate the person's paying is 17%, which is still high for a loan rate. But if you don't pay it on time, or you always are leaving a balance, they can eventually jack it up to this, 29. And so what they're saying, transactions made on or after this date, the penalty APR will apply to these transactions. And we can keep it at this 29% indefinitely, right? And the current rates will continue to apply to these transactions. But if you become more than 60 days late on the account, the penalty rate, we can jack it all the way up to 29. So you need to understand there's a penalty rate if you're not paying this off every month.
And also, look at how terrible that is. I mean, if you're already having trouble and don't manage to make those payments for a couple of months, they're going to jack your rate up to the point that actually makes it harder for you ever to dig your way out. So,
and a lot of this, that's a perfect example, because they can almost double the amount of interest that you're paying.
Yeah. And if you're already having trouble and not being able to make the minimums, those tiny minimums that they give you compared to, what your overall balance is.
Right.
That could put you on the hamster wheel for so long. It's good that information is made available so people can be warned, but definitely on your statements, you got to kind of take a look at that and understand what those parameters are, because you do not want to get yourself in that situation.
Not at all. And the thing you have to understand is, prior to the creation of the Credit Financial Protection Bureau, the credit card companies never had to explain this to you. So you'd racked up whatever, a couple grand on your card, wouldn't think about it. Maybe you're just paying the minimum payment. And the next thing you know, you're getting jacked up. You're paying 30% interest. And you don't even realize it. You're just paying the minimum payment until after you're sitting there like, I've been paying on this card for 2 years, and the balance has barely gone down.
We just used to not understand the mystery of it. We're like, I know the interest is accumulating, but why is it not going anywhere? And there was no information being given to us. We had to either be able to magically figure it out or just be confused and deal with it. Right.
So just to give you an example, if I'm just doing monthly for the APR, but if they jack up the rate to 28.99%, that's $1,700. I just want $1,700. You owe, by the end of the year, if you hadn't made any payments, they would have racked up over $500 worth of interest just on that. Versus the current rate of 16.99, you'd have only racked up $200, $250 in interest, almost three. So there's a big difference.
Just all the money hacks. That's why I follow her.
I literally want to set my own hair on fire.
John, I can't breathe. Just to see if I can still feel.
Way to go, America.
I think I held my breath during that whole video. I'm just now realizing.
Yeah, you should breathe during times of stress.
I've heard you have experience with breathing exercises.
That is right.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack here, John.
Feels like there's very little to unpack.
You're right, but I just need to say it because it needs to be said. That advice is one of the many reasons, and let me tell you, that video, millions of views.
Really?
500,000 likes.
Wow.
This is what the younger generations are clinging to. Going, yes, finally, someone who gets it, because my mom was just telling me the same thing.
Dumb old
I'm like, Mom, you don't understand. I'm going to pay it off every month.
But see, once again, we pointed out, the amazing thing is this is all on the Credit Finance Protection Bureau's website. So I don't know what they're... I can see the issue of overspending, but she makes it clear.
So it just brings me to this point.
Yeah, go ahead, say.
I mean, it's absolutely not her fault. So I guess I agree with the point that people love to say they're going to pay it off every month, and then what do they not do? Pay it off every month, right?
Right.
But this has nothing to do with this particular person on TikTok. She's literally giving all of the correct information.
Right.
Other people's behaviors absolutely need to be addressed, but I don't think that's what she's trying to do here.
No, plus, like I said before, I think it helps that they understand how it works. If you understand how it works, you're less likely to get in trouble. Right? Or you at least have the, the knowledge to say, well, maybe that's not for me. As opposed to just telling people flat out, no, don't touch. Right?
Right?
Will Smith already sang that song. Parents just don't understand.
We've dealt with the credit card issue time and time again, but let me just reiterate why that advice is going to cause a lot of harm to your life. Number one, we get a lot of debt-free screams that come through this lobby. We've had 72 so far this year that have paid off over $10.5 million total. You know how they went into that debt, John? Do you think they went and opened a credit card and said, well, I'm going to pay it off every month? So why not?
Everyone who opens a credit card is like, oh, I take care of it.
No one opens one going, oh, can't wait to go into debt and carry a balance every month.
You know what I really want to do? Shackle my family and all of our future dreams. That sounds awesome.
It's a good time.
That's right.
And here's the thing. In a perfect world where there was no sin, there was no fall of man, we
Oh,
could probably
keep it in
use credit cards
church, man.
responsibly, John.
James,
Jesus.
you're just getting existential in
But
here,
here's
man.
we live in a fallen world, and humans are fallible creatures, and
It's fallen. I'm so...
Fall of man?
Fall of man. It's just so... So here's what he does. He does here's what's wrong with what she said. Nothing was wrong with what she said. It was textbook what she said. The only thing that you could say is, well, if you get a credit card, you're not likely to stick to that program, right? But, we can mention that, you just don't get a credit card with that too high of a limit. We've discussed all this. The other issue is the problem with people going into credit debt just because they're sinful and we live in a fallen world? Or could it maybe be they didn't understand how to use the card, or they didn't understand that if I don't pay it off, I'm getting into all that debt, or they're going to jack up my interest rate? It's like we just went through all that. So once again, they're attributing correlation to cause, and they're not the same thing, right? And we can cover this over and over again, but I remember when I was a police officer, and there was the real famous study where crime and ice cream sales are almost perfectly correlated. Ice cream sales go up, crime goes up about the same amount. Crime goes down, ice cream sales go down. Now, is that because people are buying ice cream and eating their ice cream going, man, I really feel like mugging somebody right now, now that I've had my ice cream, right? So is ice cream...
You know what? I get really mad after I eat ice cream, and
Just-
all this
Just want to commit assault.
hatred and loathing starts coming out, and then I just see somebody on the street, and I'm like, man, I need to jump that person and fuck them for their whatever.
Yep. Yep. But that's the thing, is that because people eating ice cream causing crime? Well, no, probably not. Are criminals going out like, wow, I've committed all this crime today. I deserve an ice cream cone. So crime is not causing that. So they were confused about, why is this so perfectly correlated when these things obviously don't cause each other? There's no causal relationship they could find. What they did was they finally figured out what it was. They're actually not correlated to each other. They're both correlated to weather.
I was going to say, let me guess. People eat more ice cream and more just crimes of opportunity when the weather is nice.
Because people are out.
Right.
Right? So that's the whole thing. But even though they're almost perfectly correlated, they're not related, right? So the idea that these people take out a credit card and they automatically go into debt because they're just sinful or irresponsible or whatever, you have nothing to connect that cause. That it's a human flaw that you're going to do that, right? They're correlated, but they have to be correlated because I can't get into credit card debt unless I take out a credit card. so the correlation's baked in, right? You know, I mean, I can't eat ice cream unless I go get ice cream.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you couldn't eat ice cream unless you planned on committing some crime.
Crimes, yeah. Well, I have to do that after I eat the ice cream, but no.
Oh, right.
But my point is,
You're so mad because you can't take the dairy.
well, that's my point. It's like saying if you go to the grocery store, you're likely to buy groceries. Most people, and the reason is because people are just too tempted to not buy groceries. That's essentially the argument he's making. People get a credit card, and the problem is they're going to run up credit debt because they're too tempted. So by getting a credit card, that's what causes debt. And it's like, no, because he's just going to point out half the people who get a card don't run up debt. So he disproves himself in the same breath. Watch.
We have the best intentions, don't we, John? I'm going to work out 3 times this week.
I actually did, but
I forgot the Bachelor was on, so I got to miss this workout, right? I'm just saying there's so many great intentions we have as a society, and then what happens? Life hits us.
Right.
I thought I could make the payment, and then I couldn't. And then this happened, so I had to get a personal loan. And so then I had to get the car loan, and it's just
tried to borrow from my roommate, and then all of a sudden my friendship's kind of wonky, right? It's that exact advice when I was in college.
I got to tell you this. So this is what's really stupid. So I got the credit card. I used it to purchase something, right? Because life happened. Not that I went and bought something stupid, but the tire blew out of my car. So I had to go buy new tires and I didn't have the money. You know, but I had the credit card, so I paid it with the credit card. Now, if I didn't have the credit card, I wouldn't be able to replace the tires on my car. How would I get to work? Right, I'd have to borrow it from my roommate. And that's going to create a problem. Right? So the credit card was actually a saving grace in this instance because it prevented me from going into a deeper problem, like potentially losing my job because I can't get to work.
And in fact, let's take this one step further because we don't particularly like that we had to pay the tires off over 3 months or whatever. I too have had to do this,
right?
Where you find yourself having to use the whole credit card thing, but yay, interest free for 90 days, so I gotta make sure I pay this thing off in 90 days, etc. Well, the result of that was multifold. One, I was really motivated to get that paid off really fast because it was going to jump from no interest to it was I feel like it was 19%, which was high at that time.
Yeah.
And the other was that it made me really, really, really feel that I needed to have some sort of an emergency savings built because the fact that I was having to freak out and figure this out in such a quick turnaround,
right?
Compared to what my income level was at the time, was like a light bulb moment.
Right.
Now, not that we want people to have problems to have their light bulb moment,
right?
But isn't that half of your childhood and your teenage years having a thing happen and then you go, oh, okay, I think I just learned this thing that's really important through an error that I don't want to say it doesn't cause any damage, but the damage is pretty minimal.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but the other thing about this too is if you're making the argument that one, it's because it's a fallen world, people are sinners and they're just going to overblow their credit. And then your example of that is somebody needs it for an actual need. Well, and that's how they're getting the credit. Well, he's already disproved his example. He's disproved his argument with the example, right? And in the counter to that example as well, if you didn't have the credit card, you wouldn't have been able to meet that need. and you'd have been in whatever trouble that would have been. Right? So they're not making a cogent argument. Oh. So we'll finish this up real quick, but
I had a credit card, and actually, I would pay it off every month, Then my transmission fell out of my HSL.
Oh my God! To prove my point.
And then I had an actual emergency.
Right? And big shocker, right? And I didn't have it that month. So I was like, I'll make it up. Years went by before I made it up, right? And it took one thing that happened, one thing that caught me, right? Let me hit you with some stats.
Okay.
I prefer you don't hit.
But what if he didn't have the credit card? He wouldn't have been able to repair his car.
Okay, I do have to say though, Duncan, it really sucks that he was paying for that freaking transmission for like years.
Well, yeah,
I don't want anyone paying for their transmission for years. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
but
I had the thing with like I don't know if it was tires or a car repair. It wasn't huge, but it was big enough to where I didn't have it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things with the car repair deal. He just, if he didn't have it, he would have been screwed either way, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip the rest of this because it's kind of pointless. I mean, he's going to go off about how 52% of people with credit cards have some sort of balance on them, and all that. But it's like, okay, a lot of them, and I think the average one is like $6,000 or something, which means a lot of people have balances, but they're only a few $100. You got to be careful with averages, right? Especially from people that get calls from people that have $30,000, $50,000 in credit card debt on a regular basis. It's like, that's not all of them. A lot of them, it's fairly small. So you got to factor that in too. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm not saying credit cards are good or bad. I'm just saying know what you're getting into before you get into it. Right? And, when people get judgy about this shit, your personal finance is yours. It's not theirs. So just because they disagree, oh well.